Welcome to IPR Radio. I am Sanjay Mukherjee. In this episode, we speak to Ms. Kalpana Bisabatuni, Managing Director, SatLife, on innovative poultry solutions to global malnutrition. At SatLife, Kalpana advances game-changing business solutions, products and technologies in low-income contexts across several countries in Africa and Asia. Working with farmers and entrepreneurs from grassroots to large enterprises, she advances affordable nutrition solutions for the most vulnerable. SatLife implements evidence-backed creative strategies to address malnutrition through collaborative efforts across sectors. In addition to spearheading research initiatives, the organization prioritizes the fight against undernutrition and malnutrition, aiming to enhance nutrition, health, and living standards among the most vulnerable groups: children, adolescents, and women of reproductive age. After the break.
In the orchestra of life, each creature plays a part. At Sapience, we see the web of life, where the health of animals reverberates through ecosystems and societies. With innovative technologies, we're redefining the future of agribusiness, sustainably enhancing productivity and profitability. We don't just dream of a better future, we make it. Food safety, quality, and security. These aren't just words, they're our mission. We're Sapience, and we're committed to healthier animals because we believe in healthier living. Be a part of our melody, and together, let's compose a better world. For more information about our products and solutions, log into sapienceagri.com.
Hello, Kalpana, and welcome to IPR Radio. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Sanjay, for having me here.
Poultry offers a sustainable and effective approach to improving nutrition, particularly in developing regions. Our discussion today focuses on the transformative potential of poultry in the fight against malnutrition, and we'll try and discover how these strategies that are making a significant impact on global health and well-being. So, Kalpana, we'd like to kind of understand from you how SatLife is making a difference. So can you provide us a snapshot of SatLife and its mission in addressing global malnutrition? And in the same sort of question, I'd like to ask, what inspired you to focus on poultry, particularly eggs, as a solution to mitigating global malnutrition?
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you also for having me on this podcast. So for more than 35 years, SatLife, we're a Swiss-based not-for-profit foundation. We've been a think tank and a knowledge contributor to the nutrition community. And we actually recently celebrated our 35 years of proven record in bringing new scientific knowledge and research innovations for nutrition. Just about 2 years ago, in late 2022, we embarked on a new strategy, and where we continue to build on our core expertise, which is generating scientific evidence, but also apply this knowledge and provide a greater emphasis on how it impacts on-the-ground activities. And our overarching mission is to close the critical nutrient gap in low and middle-income countries. These critical nutrients being micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals, lipids, which are essential fatty acids, and protein, especially in the vulnerable groups, which are women of reproductive age and in children. And we do this at SatLife in 3 stages. In stage 1, we translate science to a solution, which is an evidence-based solution, which is the core of what we do as a think tank. Then we go to stage 2, where we take the solution to a sustainable business model. And this is the knowledge of how to deliver a solution in a locally led, efficient way, such that the local entrepreneurs and the local communities benefit from our stage 2 work. And finally, in our stage 3, we amplify whatever we've learned, the key lessons we have learned in stage 2, to achieve high levels of coverage and impact lives and end public health problems. And this is what we call as taking a sustainable business model to scale. And 2 years ago, when we studied the ecosystem, the SatLife leadership team, it became very apparent that the biggest area of need was this transition from stage 1 to stage 2. And that's why we're expanding our work a lot more on the ground and try to become specialists in these areas by by becoming better partners with local entrepreneurs and accelerate direct impact on the ground. And that is SatLife's current mission. Specifically, eggs really stands out in our strategy. It is our very first solution where we have taken it from stage 1 to 2 and now to 3, stage 3, where we are amplifying the impact of eggs on the ground. And it started in 2016. By then, there were some compelling studies that were done on the role of eggs in addressing very well established by then, by 2016, that eating livestock-derived foods reduces stunted growth in children, which is a form of malnutrition, and it manifests in the first 1,000 days of life. Which what we mean by 1,000 days is the time when a woman is pregnant till the child turns 2 years old, and that counts as 1,000 days. And if you look at all animal source protein or livestock-derived foods, eggs stand out because they're very easy to cook. They can be locally produced, and they are pretty fast to produce compared to many other animal source protein productions. They're the most feed-efficient animal protein. They're sustainably packaged. You don't need extra packaging, plastic packaging, for example, to transport eggs. Yeah? And they're versatile. They can be cooked in many ways. And more importantly, for the malnutrition work that we do, eggs are like a miracle food for young children, because young children have small stomachs, which means that every bite they eat, it needs to be packed with dense nutrition. And that's what eggs have. They're densely packed with many vitamins and minerals, very high quality protein, as well as essential fatty acids. And that's how we started beginning a focus on eggs.
Right. I think eggs are also a very affordable source of protein, if I might add there, in terms of that's what we've seen at many a forum that we've spoken about, the affordability of eggs today in underdeveloped regions. So can you share some live examples of successful poultry initiatives initiated by SatLife? I mean, I know you have something called the Egg Hub, which I was reading about the other day. So can you expand on that, please, and tell us a little bit about that?
Very happy to. Thanks, Sanjay. And before we arrived at this particular model on what exactly works in rural areas, there were a couple of things which really stood out for us. One is, even though eggs are the most affordable source of protein compared to all the livestock-derived foods, they're still very expensive. They're at least 3 to 4 times more expensive for the same level of calories that come from staple foods, such as rice or maize, cereals that you eat every day. And then we try to understand what was it that was driving these issues. And more importantly, malnutrition rates in rural areas were far more severe than urban areas. For example, in the country of Malawi, where we piloted the Egg Hub model, the stunting rates in rural Malawi is 40%, whereas in urban area, it's 25% of all children. So that also helped us on trying to figure out 2 main questions. Are there models, poultry models, that can improve production in rural areas? And can they be made viable, scalable, and sustainable? And then the second question is that as soon as production ramps up, how can we shorten the time frame for consumption? That is, when eggs are very, very scarce and low, you will see that consumption doesn't take off immediately. We do need some kind of demand-related work and making people aware about the importance of eggs in vulnerable groups, especially in women and children, so that consumption time frame can also be shortened. And the main reason eggs are expensive and the production is low is because it's mostly the dominant production method in rural areas is the backyard farming. And in backyard farming, there's a high mortality of the birds because they're exposed to a lot of disease risks from migratory birds, but also predators. And also the genetics of the breed itself means that the eggs laid per bird is 1/10 of what you could see in urban areas. So overall production systems were very inefficient. As a result, eggs were actually scarce. In most parts of Africa, rural Africa, not more than 1 to 2 eggs are available per capita per week, and sometimes per month. So we have a very, very low baseline that we had to start with. The other challenge that we faced was that because eggs were scarce, they were considered as very special food. which means that they were reserved for mostly visitors or guests at home or the men in the family. So women and children actually had very low access or consumption of eggs. So we had to also break that norm after we ramp up the production. So these are two main questions that we answered. And we investigated in about 5 countries in East Africa and Asia on what exactly works. The first type of initiative that we found is what is called as a micro-franchising model, where the day-old chicks are vaccinated and they're sold when they have become 4 to 6 weeks old directly to the households, so that they're resilient to any kind of backyard-related diseases. And in the second model is what microfinancing institutions have been doing. They give loans to small-scale farmers, and they can raise birds up to like 200 flock-sized birds per farm. The third type is cooperatives, and the fourth type, which we really honed in on, is this hub model, where you have a local input player, a supplier, input supplier, like a feed miller or a genetics production player. What they do is they raise the birds until they are ready to lay. That is up to 16 to 18 weeks, the bird is ready to lay. Then they then they go into the rural areas, bring farmers, smallholder farmers, into groups of 5, and each group is given up to 800 to 1,000 birds and raise it as a small-scale farm, not backyard farming, not micro-scale farming, but a small-scale farm, which is defined as anywhere between 800 to 1,000 birds, because that is the minimum unit size where a farm is profitable. Anything less than that, the farmer, it's very difficult for poultry farming to survive or sustain or become profitable in the long run. And that was the crux, is the egg hub model. The hub, which is the input supplier, organizes farmers into groups, provides them the starter input package on a loan, and throughout the growing period for about a year or a little more than the year, there is constant high quality feed provided, but also guidance on how to manage the farm with these farmers. And there is regular veterinary support. As a result, the farms were sustainable and they became profitable in 3 years, and they broke even and they were able to pay back the loan. And the hub itself was able to break even in 4 years. And once the farmers paid back the loan, the hub operator was able to either expand the hub to new areas or bring in more new farmers into the hub. So that was the crux here. It was also a win-win situation for the farmer, because the majority of the mortality of the birds happens in the first 18 weeks. Now that happens at an economy of scale on the hub premises. So it takes away the risk for the farmer. And the day the farmer gets this input package is also the day when they start seeing the income, because the birds start laying the eggs, they get ready to lay eggs, ready to lay birds. They start laying the eggs and they sell the eggs in the market for their income. So I think rural areas, it's very important to set up locally economically viable models if you want to have a really sustainable model for egg availability in the areas, but also make them affordable. And once supply ramps up, then the prices fall. So eggs that are associated with the hub, the farms that are associated with the hub, they're 40%, or even in some cases, they're 1/3 the price of a backyard egg, because as supply goes up, you can see the prices calibrating and becoming more affordable. So as a result of this hub model, what we have seen is that overall supply of eggs in any given village went up by 3.5 times. As a result, prices dropped to 1/3 the price of a backyard egg. And then what we also did was to shorten the time frame of consumption in women and children, because our mission was to have an impact on malnutrition. So we ran demand creation campaigns highlighting the importance of eggs, especially for women of reproductive age and children. And we saw a massive bump in consumption also in women and children who went, and especially in Malawi, they went from 2 eggs being available or being consumed per person in any given month to 9 eggs now. And that's been what I call is the core success factor of the egg hub model. It's not only about lives through addressing malnutrition, but also providing livelihood opportunities and making local economic development a key core factor in this model.
Wow. We'll be back after a short commercial break.
That is a wake-up call against the growing shadow of antibiotic resistance over our poultry, our health, and our world. To fight this menace, Excelsio, a natural antibiotic-free performance enhancer, marshals an army of bacteriophages, each engineered by evolution to engage a specific bacterial adversary. Excelsio uses a cocktail of bacteriophages that protects your flock against various strains of Salmonella, E. coli, Clostridium perfringens, and Staphylococcus aureus. Excelsio is more than a product. It's our shield against antimicrobial resistance. It's our stand for a safer, healthier future. For more information about our products and solutions, log into sapiensagri.com.
How would you, or how do you measure the impact of poultry programs or initiatives on the malnutrition rates? What are the metrics and how do you measure it?
That's a very important question because that's the only way we know whether an initiative is successful or not. In our work, we looked at 8 different categories. One is we start out with what is called as nutritional status assessments, where you measure individual children on their height, weight, and sometimes they take upper arm circumference. That's one kind of measurement. The second kind of measurement is what they call as dietary intake surveys, where you evaluate changes in dietary patterns. And then as a result of the change, what is the nutrient intake, particularly in the consumption of eggs and chicken meat, which are rich in protein and essential micronutrients. The third way, which is the most complex but also very expensive to do, is what they measure, what we call as measuring health outcomes. These health outcomes could be monitoring rates of specific nutrient deficiencies, for example, vitamin B12 deficiency or vitamin D deficiency, but also looking at whether anemia rates have come down and any other health outcome that can be influenced by a food-based diet. The fourth category, which is very important for models like the Egg Hub model, but in general for poultry initiatives to be sustainable, are economic indicators, where we look at the economic impact of the initiatives, such as household income, their expenditure on food, and how does it affect their diversity and the nutritious diet that they're consuming. The fifth is more of an output of an initiative, which is measuring the program reach and coverage, as in to what extent the target population where the engaged had access to eggs and other poultry products. The sixth one, which is a long-term measure, is to look at changes in behavior, especially in food preparation, how eggs are stored, consumption behaviors, and how that affects nutritional status. And the last two are centered around business models and market dynamics, where you analyze the availability, affordability of the eggs, and the quality of the eggs and poultry products in the local markets as a result of the initiative, and whether there's long-term viability and there is an ability for the program to continue beyond the funding period. While these are all nice to do, what I really advocate for is that the direct health outcomes are considered the gold standard for measuring the impact, but it's a mountainous task, both in terms of complexity and cost, and you can't measure everything. In other words, we must look beyond direct measures to indirect ones to offer practical insights, especially if you're doing day-to-day measurement and trying to change your initiative or scale your initiative. And here, the market dynamics, as well as the economic indicators, they serve as the pragmatic proxy indicators. They're like the roots of a tree. While they're hidden beneath the surface, they're critical for the health and growth of the whole community. And these indicators can provide a broader picture of the program's influence in the community's economic stability, access to nutritious food like eggs, which ultimately would contribute to better health outcomes.
And I think women play a very important role. That's what's come out in these initiatives or these models. So my question to you is, how do you engage local communities, and particularly women, in the initiatives that you run?
Yeah, but you touch upon a very important point, Sanjay. Half of our farmers in our model are actually women farmers. Yeah? And actually, poultry farming is relatively easy type of livestock farming, especially egg farming, compared to other types of animal protein sorts of farming. So it makes it really easy for women to manage their household activities, but also contribute to poultry, but also run poultry as a business. One of the key things that we have designed in our model is the importance of groups, setting up farmer groups. So we have about 5 farmers in each group, so 5 women farmers, so that they don't have to go to the poultry farm every single day. They can take turns in managing the farm, and they spend about 4 to 5 hours in a day. It's that easy to do poultry farming, which also gives them the time to do other things such as collect firewood, take care of the children, but also the household related activities. And because poultry farming is relatively easy, and women are a key component for employment in rural areas, it also builds agency. And what we've also seen is that they are also the caretakers of what gets consumed at home. So once they see their ownership of the business, you would also see more nutritious foods also being cooked at home, especially for children. Yeah? So women in general are not only the traditional stewards of the families and communities, but also the key drivers of egg production and local agricultural production and distribution in rural areas. And communities, especially because in rural areas, we're setting up small farms in local rural areas. It's important to first get the buy-in and ownership of the local communities. So we involve communities right from the planning stage to implementation to make sure both their needs and preferences are considered. Then we start out with the education and training program. We have a demo farm on the hub. We take the farmers to the demo farm and do both hands-on training, but also most of them are very technologically savvy, very active on WhatsApp groups. So we've also converted a lot of these training materials into very snazzy, short video content, which they can refer to during their daily challenges as they go through production. And because we're organizing farmers into groups, their empowerment comes to fostering responsibility and commitment. They take turns in financial planning. We also have financial training and education modules in our model to help them with the financial management as well. And more importantly for us, the local leaders, the village heads are critical before we start the project. And many times, because there are very few employment opportunities in rural areas, we are often welcome a model that covers both livelihoods as well as addresses malnutrition in lives is often welcomed by local leaders. And then recently, we've had one real success story of how engaging women and promoting gender equality, but also strengthening community-based production models works. One of our women farmers, after the farm became profitable in 3 years and they were able to pay back the loan, she by herself went and applied for a grant with the Malawian government. And she got a grant to scale up her farm by 10 times. That is, I think, a true example of what agency can do and strengthening communities can do.
Fabulous. My last question to you for today, Kalpana, is how do you see the role of poultry in addressing malnutrition evolving over a period of time, say in the next 5 years?
Yeah, in both across Africa and Asia, you'll see we've seen poultry is becoming a significant mandate in their livestock national plans. The main reason being it's relatively easier to produce eggs and poultry meat compared to other livestock or larger animals. We also now have enough knowledge that a minimum farm size of about 700,000 birds is important for the farm to be profitable. So especially in Asia, we've seen, for example, the state government of Odisha said that there will be special financial incentives and schemes available for farms who start with 1,000 birds. And that's a significant step of moving away from the inefficient backyard models to small-scale production. Yeah. So to be able to address malnutrition effectively in many poor countries, low and middle-income countries, it's important to move these efficiencies away from backyard to small-scale production systems. And that could be a significant driver to make eggs and poultry meat available locally at affordable prices. So that's one is just the unit economics and the model dynamics itself that'll evolve over the next 5 years. The second trend that we are seeing is more economic empowerment. There is generally a preference for women farmers to choose poultry farming. As a result, you see a lot of philanthropic sector jumping in and offering gender-based incentives or economic empowerment, especially for women in rural areas. And poultry would definitely stand in the top 5 opportunities for employment, but also taking ownership and having local businesses in rural areas. Then the 2 other big trends. One is there's been significant technological advancements in poultry farming techniques and disease control measures, whether it is with genetics or better quality of feed, and that can sustain or improve production in rural areas. Yeah. And finally, it's the consumer awareness. Eggs, people are realizing, are really dense with a lot of nutrients and easy to cook, especially for young children, and incorporate into their diets. So there's rising consumer awareness for protein, and eggs and poultry being the most affordable among the livestock-derived foods will lead to increased demand and integration into local diets. But having said that, I would say just as one cannot catch the wind in a net, one cannot grasp the full potential of poultry with just a single hand. What I mean is that collective effort and diverse approaches are needed if you want to harness the full benefits of poultry in the fight against malnutrition, which is where collaboration between public and private sectors and innovation like this making these innovations accessible will make a lasting impact of poultry on malnutrition.
Thank you, Kalpana. It's been wonderful speaking to you today. And you've given us very, very interesting insights into the way poultry, eggs in particular, are contributing to malnutrition or mitigating malnutrition globally. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having you on the show sometime in the future as well.
Thank you, Sanjay. So much. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
To be notified of upcoming podcasts, like and subscribe our YouTube channel at IPR Radio today.